we are obligated as a society, as a culture, as a Jewish state, as a religion, as commanders of the IDF, as civilians, to bring that back home, all of them. We cannot starve the people of Gaza to death. If we could do that, we could release everybody quite faster.
Grisha, it is very simple. We can surrender, we can give Gaza back, and we'll get also hostages. Sacrificing our national security to our private security, to our human security, is something terrible, and we will pay a very high cost for this deal. I'm sure of it.
Welcome, everyone. Delighted to have everyone join us at our kickoff debate at JNS, where we're going to be tackling critical issues facing the Jewish community, the U.S.-Israel relationship, and its ramifications around the world. Again, I want to preface today's conversation about the hostage deal and its implications is a very sensitive conversation. And regardless of where you may fall on this issue, our thoughts and prayers remain with the hostages, their families, and all those impacted by October 7th. Our two panelists today served in strategic positions in the IDF and care deeply about the safety and security of the Jewish people, the state of Israel, and its citizens. So I encourage you to listen and learn as we explore this really sensitive conversation. And again, our prayers are with those still being held in Gaza. Professor Dr. Colonel Gabi Siboni is a national security specialist and the former director of Military and Strategic Affairs Program and the Cybersecurity Program at Tel Aviv University's Institute for National Security Studies, also known as INSS. He is now a senior research fellow at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, JISS, and the Misgab Institute for National Security. In the Army, Professor Siboni was the deputy and chief methodologist of the IDF's Research Center for Force Deployment, and build-up during 2005 to 2021. He developed strategic and operational warfare concepts, including integrated combat in complex and densely populated areas, cyber defense, and cyber warfare, cognitive and influence warfare, and methodologies for computerized simulation, including large-scale military operations. Welcome, Gabi. We're honored to have you here today.
Thank you,
Our
Jeff.
next panelist is Colonel Grisha Yakubovich, an expert on Israeli-Palestinian relations and a well-respected policy and strategy consultant. He served in the IDF for over 30 years. His last position is the head of the civilian department in the coordination of government activities in the territories, also known conventionally as COGOT, overseeing economic and infrastructural projects and facilitating humanitarian issues in the Palestinian territories. Notably, he was the last mayor in Gaza before Israel disengaged in 2005. Welcome, Grisha. We're honored to have both of you here today for this very important and sensitive conversation. So with that, as we go alphabetically, Gabi, I turn to you for the first question. And to note, the topic in question is, what are your positions on the hostage deal in each of its phases? Gabi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jennifer. I was against the hostage deal from the beginning, even the first hostage deal, because I was under the impression or under the understanding that Israel could have gotten better results by putting more pressure on Hamas, mainly humanitarian aid, the supply of humanitarian aid during the first one. And now we are in the same situation where we have a deal that has some very bad, let's say, fallbacks. First thing is that this deal has strategic and moral implications, very bad implications for Israel. The moral implications are mainly the issue that we are, let's say, getting relieved of most of our pressure or most of our ability, leverage on Hamas. And I have the understanding that Hamas will never free all of the hostages. This is their main tool and their main advantage that they have in their mind to keep Israel bleeding and to make sure they pressure Israel. And this is for their security, their insurance for their security. So to my understanding, they will never release all the hostages. It means that some hostages will remain in their hand, while we will not have any leverage to free them. My second point is that this deal, is the first time ever Israel is paying hard policy changes and strategic positions in freeing our hostages or prisoners of war or whatever. It was always people for people, regardless of the ratio. Okay, I was involved and I was not involved, but I was exposed to Shamgar, Meir Shamgar committee in 2008 about the principle of releasing hostages, and he gave some ratio, but we were not dealing with that anymore. This is not accepted anymore by anyone, even in Israel. But this time we are paying hard strategic points, in hard strategic positions. So Israel not only paying by releasing many prisoners that we have, very, very dangerous prisoners that will probably go back to terrorism, but also was relieved of our position, for example, in North Gaza. And for the second stage, they are now speaking of our position in Philadelphia corridor. This is something very, very, let's say, very bad precedent that we are going through, and I think it's a terrible thing to do. Now, having said that, of course, I when I see the pictures of the hostages, it's really nobody can be calm seeing, and we are all excited to see them back. But I think in the end, we have to understand a very, let's say, critical point. We will do the best to free all our hostages, but we must understand, and also the public in Israel have to understand as well, not only by me, also by our decision makers, that it is likely that we will not be able to relieve all of them just by negotiating with Hamas. And also, this is the main point. And I think that when we are dealing with the cost of war, we are looking at the cost of war by our dead soldiers, our wounded soldiers, families that have been hurt. And we isolate the problem of the hostages only to the hostages, only to the private people. We are making a very bad decision. A state cannot be managed by emotions, only by emotions. It has to be managed also by cold strategic decisions. And sacrificing our national security to our private security, to our human security, is something terrible. And I think it will end up in being, we will pay a very high cost for this deal. I'm sure of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabi. Grisha.
Well, I do understand the fact that there is a built-in tension between national security strategy and feelings and responsibilities, human lives. Okay, it's always, the stick with the two edges, and we need to find the right balance between those two issues. And it's not about understanding and understanding from the society or the people of Israel. It's about what is our culture, what is our religion, and what is our society based on. And I remember myself as a soldier, and I'm sure that Gabi remembers that also as a commander and as a soldier. We always knew that we will go and fight for our country in Lebanon or in Gaza or I don't know where, and we know that somebody will be there, or as a medic to help us, or somebody will put us in a bag to bring us back home, so we will be buried, not for us, but for our families. So what happened on October 7th, what I would say the small-scale Holocaust on October 7th, is something that was made by the leadership, by the commanders, by the state of Israel. Now, the state of Israel could lead this war differently, And I think that we got some advices from our friends to, I would say, to present a strategy for the day after. And we entered to this war facing a catch that I will name Catch 44, not Catch 22. The best solution, we could release everybody. We could do that by pushing into Gaza, 10 divisions with zero aid to Gaza, with zero water, electricity. And I'm sure that after a month or 2 months, Hamas would be on their knees begging us to stop the war and actually sending the hostages back to us. But we cannot do that as a state. We could not do that as a Western state. Nobody would allow us to behave in that way. That was the right way to do. Now, not being able to bring results by acting this way, because this is a catch, we needed to find different solutions. Like we needed to challenge Hamas in a way that they would have no choice. And I think that the challenge that the IDF created was not enough. I think that if we would find, and we could, I believe that we could, create a threat of Hamas that will threat the day after inside Gaza, I think that we could reach to a better deal long time ago. And I'm sure that now, a year and a half after, we could be in a different situation. Now, I'm not saying that this is the best thing. This is the best, I would say the 100% best solution. But this is, I would say, could be the worst case scenario or the good worst scenario that we could do it better. But yes, we are obligated as a society, as a culture, as a Jewish state, as a religion, as commanders of the IDF, as civilians, to bring that back home, all of them, the live, the ones that are alive and the ones that are dead. And because of the failures that the country, the state led, it is our responsibility to pay the prices, and we need to understand that it will create national threats on us in the future, and we need to be prepared for that also.
So, Gabi, let me follow up with you for a second. Israel has successfully secured the release of only 8 hostages through military pressure and through rescue operations. But these are not bringing people home. We saw 3 hostages returned via the ceasefire phase 1 this weekend. These people were reminiscent of what Holocaust survivors look like, and I don't use that word lightly. The presumption at this point is that people left in captivity in the Gaza Strip are in worse shape, and time is running out. How would you approach this situation, knowing that we may have another 70-something rods in our hand will we never see these people again? How do you respond to the moral imperative right now to bring these people home?
Let me raise an analogy. Let's assume that we had the chance to free Auschwitz from the Nazis, but in return, we will have to allow the Nazis to remain in power in Europe, and we will get a deal with the Nazis to remain in power in Europe. Now that's the balance. It's the same balance. What would we choose? Would we choose to relieve the Jews or everybody that was captured in Auschwitz and was on the way to the furnaces? What would we choose? I have made my own moral decisions in our position here. Grisha is right. We made mistakes. The country had made mistakes. The government, the IDF, all our system was terrible during the, let's say, the 7th of October, and after also some of it afterwards. But we are not able to correct the mistake. We will do more mistakes. We will provide Hamas the presence in Gaza. We'll give them again to fortify themselves, just to release our hostages, and we'll say, okay, we did a mistake. We have to do a bigger mistake now. Now I will tell you something very bad. It's very difficult to say. But if you recall, no, I don't know if you recall, but if you have read, there was some options to bomb Auschwitz during the Second World War. There was an attempt to convince the British and the Americans to bomb Auschwitz and to kill the Jews that were there, to stop it. But it was not done. But the request was a moral request. So I say, we are paying the toll of war. Our families, our soldiers, dead soldiers, and the families of the dead soldiers and our wounded. Also, the hostages are the toll of war. We cannot isolate everything and look only at the hostages, only with the straw, to look at the hostages and say, okay, we are dealing with the hostages, we don't care for anything less. I've made my choice. My choice is that we should look strategically to the horizon and to make sure Hamas does not pose any threat anymore to Israel, and we eliminate Hamas totally from Gaza and from the global the world, the earth. So I know it's terrible, but we will do the best. We will do our best to free as much as we can hostages. But I'm sure some of them we will not be able to do it. And this is our moral point. And look, stage 2 now that we are discussing, Hamas is requesting that Israel will go back completely from the border. We will not have the security perimeter anymore. We will not have control over Philadelphia corridor. It means that they can again funnel reinforcement into Hamas. And what will happen to our envelope villages in Gaza? They will stay there. They cannot stay there with this threat build-up. So I've made my choice. This is my personal choice. And I hope our leadership and our decision makers will take the same choice and will stop looking at it only through the eye of the persons that are there. It is impossible to do it. It's really, there is no way to run a state, any state, but nevertheless Israel, in such a way. Thank you.
Gabi, before we get back to Grisha, and I know he has a 2-minute response to this based on the rules, I just wanted to clarify one point that you mentioned. You mentioned the soldiers. There are obviously civilians who were in Kfar Aza and Kibbutz Be'eri and Nachal Oz and so many other places who, again, were not enlisted to the IDF. Maybe they were in reserves. Maybe they were grandmas having breakfast, or, Shir Bibas right now with her 2 children still unaccounted for. Are you bifurcating the difference between...
No.
Just
they are all the same. I will tell you something. My generation, my class, was part of the incident in Ma'alot in 74, I think, 74. And they were captured by terrorists. And they were killed because Israel did not agree to free. It was they wanted to free some of their fellow prisoners, the terrorists, and Israel did not agree. And this is Israel made a rage to this place, and consequently, many of my classmates died in this terror attack. So this is nobody. They were civilians. In Gaza, they are civilians. So that's it. Such is life. This is the toll of war. This is it.
Thank you, Gabi. Grisha, you have 2 minutes to respond to that.
Well, first of all, in the personal approach, I have to say that I have to thank the United States and the UK that they did not bomb Auschwitz, because then I would not be born, probably. My dad survived Auschwitz. So we can say thank you for that. I'm here. We are talking about different times. Second World War is not 2024 or 2023. We are in a Jewish state, in a democracy. We have our own army. We can defend ourselves. And we failed as a state, as a society, as an army, as defenders. And, I've been part of this organization. And one of the things that our enemies, Hamas, and I think that they are worse than Nazis, they succeeded to turn us apart as a society. And one of the things that this deal, or this approach to the deal, or how they behave continues turning us apart as a society. And this is something that we need to fix. And I believe that the only way that we will be able to fix it is to do whatever is needed to implement this deal. And later on, and I think that now we have a window of opportunity to change the approach because of what Hamas is doing. They stopped the deal. They just announced a few hours ago that they will not continue with the release. And I think that maybe this is a window of opportunity maybe to do what we were supposed to do at the beginning of the war. But if the deal will continue, I think it's our obligation to continue with the deal until we will release the last of the hostages, at least the ones that are alive. This is our responsibility as a state. And then we will have to deal with our enemies. And it's not only Hamas. We are talking about a whole new Middle East that is changing around us. And I would say that this is exactly what Hamas did with Sinwar. I think I mentioned it in one of our podcasts. This is what Hamas did is the butterfly, okay, that moved the wings from the theory of chaos, and those wings created a tornado in the Middle East. And I think that President Trump's response is part of that response to the tornado that is going on here. So we still have a lot to face, and it's not only Hamas, it's what is happening around us. And the threat is only growing, and we need to be prepared for that also. So we need our unity, first of all.
So, Grisha, as a follow-up to this, the Gilad Shalit deal led to the release of Yahya Sinwar, who was, quote-unquote, the architect of the October 7th massacre. Why do you think another prisoner release won't lead to another October 7th in perpetuity, that we're going to be sitting here looking and saying Jewish buses are being held hostage on their way to school, Israeli citizens are going to be kidnapped and taken for ransom? How do we avoid that security outcome in your mind? How do we avoid another Yahya Sinwar?
First of all, I didn't say that, okay? I do can confirm, like Professor Gabi said, that the first Intifada started because of the release of Ahmad Jibril deal. They are the ones who led the first Intifada. And then there were other deals that led to the second Intifada. And yes, the release of Gilad Shalit, it was a mistake in the past, okay? It was only one soldier, and it was a mistake. I cannot tell you it's not. But the ones who failed then were actually Gilad Shalit and his team in the tank, or his commanders. On October 7th, the state of Israel failed. The whole IDF failed. It's not a failure of, I don't know, somebody there or a commander there. It was a colossal failure of the whole system. So we need to gain our responsibility back. We need to gain the trust back. We need to build it back again. And to do that, we need to take the most important weapon that Hamas is using, is our torn apart society. And this is what we need to fix as fast as possible. And either we like it or we hate it. We are in a situation that the society in Israel is actually is torn apart. Two camps, and we need to create peace in those two camps. We need to bring back our unity, so we will be able to be prepared to the consequences of this deal with what Professor Gabi mentioned, with the strategical threats, with the next maybe October 7th that somebody else will plan, that I hope that it will never happen again. But it is our obligation after this huge failure to fix it, to bring them back home, and then to prepare ourselves to the next October 7th. I'm not saying that it will not be here. I'm not saying that our enemies will not plan it again. They will. And we need to be better. We need to be stronger. We need to be faster. We need to maybe change or to think out of the box. And to see how can we be prepared for the next October 7th. that our enemies will plan. And it will not be only from Gaza. It will be from Gaza. It will be from the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. It will be from Lebanon, from Syria, with the new Salafi jihadistic Sunnis there. It will be from Turkey, I believe. So we have a lot to do. But first of all, let's bring them back home.
So Grisha, 280 people serving, and people, let me clarify, terrorists serving life sentences were released as part of the Gilad Shalit deal. I know you mentioned that deal was not a good deal. But right now, many more terrorists are being let out of Israeli prisons serving life sentences who've committed egregious acts against Israelis and other citizens of other countries. Again, I turn to you. How do you protect Israel's border in this conversation?
We need to increase the IDF. We need to add more divisions. We need to be better. We need to be stronger. We release them and we know where they live. We release them and they, I hope all of them signed on a paper that they will not get back to terror again. And if they will get back to terror again, it's a death sentence to them. And they need to understand it. And this is how it must work. It has nothing to do with our responsibility to bring the hostages back home. There is a price that we need to pay. This is a huge price, okay? I understand the consequences of moving out from Philadelphia corridor. I understand the consequences of giving back the land Hamas are celebrating on our withdrawal from Netzarim. I see the videos, I see the pictures. I understand it, but we need to pay this price because there's nothing more important than saving humans' lives, especially Israelis, especially Jews, and especially after the government, the state, the army, the ones that were responsible to secure them, failed.
Grisha, I have a lot more follow-up to that, but I'm going to let Gabi respond for 2 minutes. Gabi,
yes, I have many things to say, but I will say something very simple. We want to save lives. Okay? Now I put the balance, the moral balance. We will pay hundreds of IDF soldiers going back to Gaza and fighting. We will pay. I know this for sure. I know how war looks like. Now, we are paying their lives for the life of 30, 40 hostages. Now, what is the balance? Who can tell me what is better now? Are we saying, okay, we want to pay? It's easy to say we want to save life because we don't have the faces and names of those who will die. And I'm talking only about soldiers. I'm not talking about civilians that will be affected by terror attacks by those who are relieved. Okay? And by the increasing of the threat, and by our villages in Gaza envelope that will not be able to live security. Maybe they will just leave their homes, and we will be abandoned this area. So, talking highly about saving lives, whose lives? I made my choice. Again, I tell you, when I look, it's a very bad, it's very difficult, it's a very, it's a hard choice to look at the faces of hostages. We've seen the faces of those who were released in Saturday. Terrible. To look at the faces and say, sorry, we will not release more because we don't want to pay those prices in the future, and we will pay them. This is not an if. It will happen if we follow this line of deal. So this is very easy to go on one line of the moral decision and say, okay, we will look at how they look like. We have to release them all now. I'm sorry. We don't have to do it now because we have other options and other threats to deal with and other people to save. This is my point. And so I have to say it's not a one-dimensional equation. It's a multi-dimensional equation, like a big matrix of variables. And we cannot only choose one variable, the hostages, and say, okay, let's try to solve it only with one variable. It's impossible to do it.
Gabi, a few follow-ups to that, and to ask the next question. You mentioned that there was internal domestic division in Israel. There was division on October 4th, 5th, and 6th of 2023. Many of us watched in America as the protests, due to domestic internal disagreements with the government were on the faces of many newscasters and on TVs and newspapers all over the world. Right now, we are seeing many of those protests happen again to bring back the hostages. The divisions in Israeli society are clear. Do you believe Israel will be able domestically to move forward from, again, a strength standpoint, given the divisions and the sensitivity and the disagreements on this very, very sensitive issue?
You know, it's like a Gordic knot. You know, it's like a complex situation, and we don't know what to do. But then Alexander came and just cut the knot, and he just opened the knot. I don't think that the division is that, is that serious. The one thing I say that our traditionally the mainstream media is giving very large amplification to that, but I think within the public is not that serious. Secondly, what you've seen before the war in terms of our let's say legal system reform and the response by some of our reserve to stop their service. And there is no other cleaner word than that. And what we see now, things are coming back. I must tell you that for my analysis, when I look at this, I see that it is all politics, and the hostages is not their main interest. I'm sorry to say. It is not their main interest to free the hostages. Had they wanted to free the hostages, we can have gotten much better deal if they did not protest, if they did not press the government of Israel, and if they would have been funneling their press to Hamas and to the US, because the US, the behavior, the last administration, the Biden administration behavior was terrible. I think they admit it now. Blinken, in one of his last interviews, he said it in his own voice, that their pressure on Israel just did not support Hamas to compromise. They just always made their position more stiff. So I don't think that what you see in Israel now it has something to do with the hostages, but I think more that the hostages issue is used for political issues in Israel. So this is, and to respond to your question in terms of what we see politically and the diversion in Israel, I don't see that in that seriousness or that severeness that you see.
And I guess my question is, I look back at Ron Arad, the Israeli Air Force officer who went missing in October of 1986 after his F-4 jet was downed. And when he was captured by Amal in Lebanon, he was held hostage. Israel spent many years, a lot of political capital, including, by the way, prisoner exchanges and negotiation to get any information on Ron Arad, because at that moment, they were not prepared to negotiate for his release. There was a very binary, we will not negotiate with terrorists coming back from the Israeli government. And years later, they paid the price in terms of getting that information out there. We're talking about 70 plus people right now in the Gaza Strip. Are you worried, in hindsight being 2020, that 20 years from now, 50 years from now, Gabi, that people are not going to be negotiating, trading murderers for information just to get access to where somebody's body is buried?
Look. Again, we should look at it in a complex way. Look, what is the message that this deal delivers to our enemies? Use kidnapping. Now, Hamas even now can find an opportunity in Gaza now and kidnap again 2, 4, 5 soldiers. What will we do then? Again, we stay, okay, we start negotiating and then giving back Be'eri to Hamas. What we will do? We had a principle. It was very hard, but it is very simple. We do not negotiate with terrorists. That's period. Once we've broken this principle, we are going in a very slippery slope, and this is what we end now, paying hard strategic positions for our kidnapped civilians and soldiers. Such is our life in Israel. We have to understand our life in Israel. This is our life. This is our destiny. And we have to, this is it. And there is no other nicer way to say it. Once we've broken this principle, it will not end. The Iranians will find a way to kidnap Israelis abroad. The Hamas will find a way. Even the Palestinians in Jeddah and Samaria will find a way, and Hezbollah will find a way. What will we do then? We cannot say we will do our best to avoid kidnapped soldiers or civilians, because the front line will always be penetrated. We know that this is a principle of war. So we have to comply with the principle. We should not negotiate with terrorists, period. And if people must pay a price, they will pay the price. This is it. Because we pay price. My kids were fighting in this war, and they will fight once again. Grisha said now that Hamas, I don't know when the IDF will go back to fight back in Gaza and in Lebanon, in Syria or whatever. They will fight again, and they will be willing to die again. Not to die. And this is our price. So we cannot isolate the problem and say, okay, what will happen in 20 years that we don't have information about our hostages and we free again. So I was okay. We say, okay, we've broken this principle. It's okay if we people for people. It's okay. Bodies for bodies, bodies for people, whatever. But we have broken this principle again in a much severe way. When we pay a change of our policy. We pay with strategic assets for our people. This is unacceptable by me, completely unacceptable.
Grisha, you have 2 minutes to respond to that.
I always think about the parents. I always think about the kids that lost their parents, or somebody's child that looks and he waits for his dad, that he will be back home, or somebody's daughter that he waits that she will be back home. And I have to step into the shoes of those parents, of those kids, and it is really, really difficult to tell them your dears will stay there and rotten or die, or we will not bring them back home. This is one of our foundations as the Jewish state. The principle is a good principle when 1, 2, 3 guys were kidnapped. Yes, this is a principle that was good when Gilad Shalit deal was on the table. And as I said, we did a mistake. But the moment the country, the state, the army that is supposed to provide you security, safety, and they failed by doing that, it is your obligation as a country to fix it. And after we fix it, let's also decide what will be the new rules, what will be the new laws, what will be the new, how will we will need to maybe to decide that in the future it will not happen again. But we cannot just leave it in the middle of the process and to say bye-bye to everybody. It will be unacceptable inside Israel. A large number of the Israeli society will be against it. I think that the numbers are bigger than what were mentioned here. And yes, this is our destiny. So we will need to be better in the future. And I understand the logic. I understand the logic and the strategy that Gabi mentioned. I understand that this is, sometimes you need to do this cold calculation. I understand it. But we are in a different situation. We are in a different reality. I think that what Israel succeeded to do during this war by creating a domino effect in the Middle East, and I don't know how to say it in English, but it's in Aramit. I studied Gemara. So in the past we say, from Bira Amikta to Igra Rama, from a very low place to a very high ground, this is what Israel succeeded to achieve. And we need to maintain this strength that we succeeded to gain during this war, to continue the negotiation, and to use the first window of opportunity to change the approach towards the Gaza Strip. And I think that it's here. The moment Hamas said no to continue the deal this weekend, we will be backed by the new U.S. administration, and we will be able to do it differently. Yes.
Jennifer, I would like very much to respond to that.
You get 1 minute, Gabi, and then I want to follow up to that question as well. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say, one point, we did a mistake. The country have done a mistake. Is the way to amend this mistake by a bigger mistake? Do you want a bigger mistake? So this is one. And I always hear this, let's say, they say, look, okay, now we do it, but tomorrow we will think and we will not do it. I'm sorry to say, tomorrow is now. There will not be different tomorrow. Always it is getting worse. So the fact that we are not dealing with this issue now means that we will not deal with it even tomorrow and the day after. It doesn't make any sense. So this is my comment to my 1 minute slot.
I have no problem to change it, but we need to change our strategy. And we cannot starve the people of Gaza to death. If we could do that, we could release everybody quite faster.
No, Grisha, it is very simple. We can surrender. We can give Gaza back, and we'll get also hostages to your principle. No problem, When you surrender, it's very simple. You give everything Hamas wants, and you hope that they will give you all the hostages. This is also an approach, no?
I disagree with this
Gentlemen.
approach. Yes.
All right. I want to follow up on
Jennifer,
this.
we need to argue a little bit. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. We will, because my next question will get us there. What will you say, Grisha, to the soldiers who gave their life fighting for these corridors, for Netzarim, for, the Philadelphia corridor? What will you say to their parents when they come home and they find out that Hamas is going to go take back those, operations that their sons and daughters fought for?
Well, first of all, I'm happy that I'm not the one who will tell them. I think this is the government's responsibility to tell them, because we could do things differently. We could lead this war differently inside Gaza, and we could achieve other achievements. And the decision was that let's challenge Hamas only by, I would say, by military, by being able to fight their military wing. And I think that the goals of this war that the government of Israel announced were also some sort of mistake. But let's not end it to that, because this is actually what led to where we are now. The best answer that I can give is we did whatever we could, whatever was right to fight the enemy, and you did a wonderful and amazing job. You killed thousands of terrorists. You eliminated a big number of, or a huge number of the enemy. And now, by achieving all that, we succeeded to release and to save some lives. Maybe we'll be able to save some more. And I hope that Hamas will continue with the deal. And if not, we will get back and force them to continue the deal until we will release and save as many people as we can.
Gabi, do you want to respond to that?
Well, I think I've made my point. Look, it is. I don't agree that let's say the directive of the government to the IDF was wrong. It was very clear. The IDF failed in achieving the civilian part of the eliminating the civilian role, the civilian control of Hamas over Gaza, without understanding that while leaving the civilian administration of Hamas in Gaza, they will be able to rehabilitate and to recover their military, what we have seen now. So this is a second issue. For a new discussion, I don't want to go to that direction. Anyway, it is not only the soldiers that have died, it is to the soldiers and civilians that will die. And this is my main issue. When you look in moral aspect, even in Auschwitz, again, I go back to Grisha. Maybe his parents would not be alive and he would not be born. And we would be talking to another Grisha that would be saved because of the bomb over Auschwitz. Because the point of bombing Auschwitz was to save Jews, not to kill Jews. Now, this is the point. And when you look at this kind of moral, very difficult moral situations, you cannot look at it in a personal, emotional way. This is impossible. When you put only emotions in your calculations, you are bound to fail. And this is where we are going now, in a straight slide to failure.
Grisha, how do you respond to the idea that right now this deal could potentially lead to more lives lost, to more terrorism, to more holding not just the Israeli population hostage, but also the global Jewish community? What will stop one of these terrorists who's being deported to take over a tourist bus in Istanbul or, a school bus on the Upper East Side of Manhattan?
Well, I hope that nobody will fly to Istanbul. They don't deserve it. At least I will not fly there. But yes, I understand the risks. Okay, I understand it. I understand the future threats that Gabi mentioned, and I really understand it, and I know that it will be difficult, and I know that it might be more dangerous. But this is not the first time in our history that we had to deal with such threats. It was, I think, during all our existence as Jews all over the world and also in Israel. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, we will need to pay a price, and I understand the price, and I understand the consequences of this price. But I do believe that we need to do the best, our best at least, okay? We need to do whatever we can do to release as many as possible, even if it's all of them. So we will be able to unite. Again, one of the weapons that Hamas used by Iran orders is throw that seed into the Israeli society, so they will be splitted, so there will be demonstrations. And this is actually was the incentive or what led Hamas to start this war. So first of all, we need to fix that. We need to bring some peace into our society, unity, and then to reorganize and to be prepared for the future threats, risks that Gabi mentioned, that I agree to them. But I think that if we will be smart enough, strong enough, I would say better, okay, as a society, as a state, and I think that we have 4 years of an opportunity to do that. Being backed by the U.S. administration, we will be able to be prepared for the future threats that are going to be bigger, and I do understand that.
I'm going to pose a really difficult question to both of you. Gabi, if your child, God forbid, was being held captive right now in Gaza, would that change your opinion on how to handle the situation from being a military strategist?
I agree. It would have changed my opinion, of course. But then again, I should have not been allowed to be part of our decision makers. I would understand. I don't know. Maybe I would not understand. I don't know. But I would not want, let's say, to be allowed. I will do everything I can to release my sons or whatever that are held in Gaza. But I think that I would understand. I don't know if I would understand, but I think that the decision makers should not consider my position, my changed position in their consideration. That should not be. I'll tell you something very difficult. I told my kids, they went to fight in Gaza, started in Lebanon, went back to Gaza, and again in Lebanon. Last year, 300 days. Yes, reserve. Finished all their business, everything, whatever they did, it was put on hold. And they knew that there was a chance that not only they will only be killed, that they will be kidnapped. And again, I was supporting them to go to do their job. So what do you think? So like me, there are tens of thousands of parents that have supported their kids to do their job, knowing that there is a possibility they will be kidnapped. and knowing that there is a possibility they will not come back, either they come back in a coffin or be left in Gaza. This is a very, let's say, difficult moral decision, but we have to make it. We cannot, look at flowers and, just to say that we have a wonderful world and that's it. We cannot do it. We have a very difficult decision to make, and we must take it. And I hope our decision makers make those decisions, because we are now, and I'm being practical, we are now, I don't know about Hamas, maybe they will decide to return back to the deal, but they want to continue to the second stage with IDF outside of Gaza completely.
And Gabi, do you believe that this position is weakening the morale of the soldiers, saying,
No,
we are leaving them behind and there is no coming back?
No. I have an example with my kids, but I know I've been on reserve from the beginning of the war until last month. So I know I've seen soldiers, I've seen the reservists, I've spoken to them, I know them. This is not an issue. And even some soldiers, that they're writing their own will before they go. And even my kids, they write something, they put it in their pocket. And many of them said, if I'm held in Gaza, don't pay the price to relieve me. Many of them said it. So I believe in our soldiers, in our heroes, and they are really true heroes. And so that's what I have to say. We should be willing to put them, to give them what they fought for the security of Israel. We cannot go back and say, okay, tomorrow we'll do it better. No, today is tomorrow. Let's do it better now.
I think we can all agree they are heroes. So Grisha, I'm going to let you respond to Gabi. I'm going to add another layer to this. If it was your child or children or wife who was murdered or you taken hostage on October 7th, would you have the same attitude towards releasing people who committed these types of crimes going forward?
First of all, you said that you're going to ask us a difficult question. So until now, it was easy questions. All of them were difficult questions. My son is also...
I'm here for it, Grisha. We got to keep it interesting.
I know. My son is also in reserve for the last year. He's still there. Okay, he still serves for the last year. And you know where, Jennifer. I want to draw a line. Okay, I want to draw a line between soldiers who go to a war, like my son, like Gabi's sons, that are heroes. All of them are heroes. I do agree to that. And between innocent civilians that were living in innocent kibbutzim near the Gaza border, supporting peace process between them and the Gazans. And they were kidnapped from their beds while the IDF was supposed to protect them. They waited for help for hours and nobody came. So when they were kidnapped, after such a failure, I think it is our obligation for the future generations to release them, to do whatever we can after this failure. When soldiers go to war, I do understand. I was also a soldier, and I also fought Hezbollah in Lebanon. And Gabi also did that in the past, and he was a commander of elite units. And we were all prepared to go and to do that and to die for what we are doing. And we also said we don't want the government to pay a price for, for us or for whatever. And yes, even if somebody would, let me tell you, let me answer different, okay, in a different way. I used to say in the past, and you know that, in our previous tours in Israel and podcasts, that I had friends in Gaza. I think you also know that I'm the only IDF officer. I was honored by a family in Gaza. There's a kid named after me. And I used to be in touch with people in Gaza. And as a human being, as a person, something happened to me, okay? I distinguish between the people in the West Bank. I have friends there. And in Gaza, I have no friends, no colleagues, no clients, no nothing. I don't want to have nothing with them, okay? Something happened to my emotions and I really don't care as a human being what will happen to those people, okay? If they will go and live somewhere else or if they will vanish somehow, I don't know. I hope it will be fixed, okay, in me, because this is who am I, who I am. And yet, even if somebody will, God forbid, kill my family, I would say that we need to pay a price to bring back the others. If it was my son or my daughter or somebody from my family that will be kidnapped, I think I will go personally. I have an M16 in my house, in a safe, if somebody listens, and I will go and try and to release them personally. And yes, it's different when it's personal or when it's not yours.
Count me in, Grisha.
I will go with you blindly, behind.
God willing, we won't get there. We have enough issues as it is. But Grisha, I'm going back right now to the Hebrew University bombing, okay? Mohammed Odeh killed a number of Israelis, injured over 100 people. American citizens were part of that attack. He's being released right now to get back the hostages. How do you reconcile that? This is not someone who is rehabilitated in prison, presumably.
No one of them will be rehabilitated because they believe in muqawama, in resistance. They believe in a vision that we have no right to exist. I understand that. And being in prison, it will not change their approach. This is who they are. This is their culture and society. And until it will not be changed as a society, the environment will not be changed, education and philosophy and theology, we will continue facing this approach. It will not change. Prison in Israel will never change that approach. Prison in Israel actually did the opposite. People who were thinking in a certain way, when they entered the prison, it was like a greenhouse that, like Yahya Sinwar, okay? He is a Hamas leader that killed Palestinians in Gaza. And in prison, he became the leader that he actually led this massacre on October 7. Okay, so actually it became worse. And this is the process in the prisons here in Israel. It's not criminals that go through a certain plan that we expect them after a certain period of time to change their approach. And yes, I do understand, and I said it at the beginning, there is a price that we are paying and that probably we are forced to pay. Even the government of Israel decided that we are paying this price because they also understand. They know better than me who is this terrorist or the others. I hope in the future that somehow they will do a mistake and we will find them and we will be there to send them, as they say, one will take it to Allah.
Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you both a question. Where is the line? Where do you say, Grisha, this is the terrorist we will not release? And Gabi, where will you say these are too many people, we can't let them be relinquished to the Gaza, tunnels indefinitely?
So, Grisha,
Gabi, why don't you start? Where is the line?
Great.
If they take hostage an entire school of children, do we say leave them behind?
look, we have done it already. We have done it with our hostages that have been held in many terror attacks. We did not say leave them behind. We went raging to free them. And consequently, many of them died. But this is the way to deal with terrorists. And this is a mega terror event. And it needs a mega response. The IDF charged into Gaza to destroy Hamas and to free our hostages. We have made many mistakes, but we need to do it again. And in the end, we cannot. I understand that we have relieved from the principle of not negotiating with terrorists. Okay, but in the past it was only people for people, or bodies for people, or whatever, but not for policy or strategic decisions. This is my main point. We are now providing encouraging our enemies to do it for strategic values of Israel. So they will kidnap a bus. What will we do? We say, okay, we need to free the... Such is our life, and we have to be very strong. And I'll tell you, I don't think that the deviation in Israel is related to the hostages. It is a political deviation that is using the hostages. I think that what I say is understood by many. It is echoed and understood by many. Yes, our decision makers could not, did not contain the pressure and, take those decisions. It's not only the internal pressure, but also the American pressure. Okay. To be honest, I don't think the Americans cared about the hostages too, completely. They wanted Israel to bleed forever. It's lucky that the Biden administration is not with us anymore. But this is the point. If we continue with this line, this is the destruction of the state of Israel. We cannot allow this, and we will not allow this. And our next, test, or to what we need to do is the request of Hamas to get out of all Gaza, to get relief of all our achievement in Gaza, and let them recover and rebuild their force. This is the point where we have to say, stop it, not anymore. So, and what will be the consequence of that? We will not be able to release our soldiers. And I will go back to what I just started. Hamas, in any point, in any way, in any guarantee of the United States, Russia, whatever, will not release all the hostages. We have to understand that. It is their insurance policy. And this is their tool to bleed the Israeli people forever. So we must understand that as well.
Thank you, Gabi. Grisha.
Well, you're making my life difficult, Jennifer.
It's what I do best, guys. These are not easy questions, by the way. And I just want to preface before Grisha says something. This is too sensitive of a conversation to have a screaming match back and forth. And I want to recognize the tone and the tenor of both of our esteemed panelists, that they were able to take a step back and recognize how sensitive and important this issue is. So, Grisha,
it is sensitive. And it is difficult, yes. And I do, as I said, I do understand the consequences. I do. But I really do believe that we need to do whatever we can to release and to bring back home at least the ones that are alive. The problem is, it's not only the Biden administration. I think that the problem is, historically, that we fight our wars with our hands tied behind. It's like somebody... some force majeure, that the name to that force majeure is Europe, the States, and other countries, the UN, that force us to feed our enemies, to continue supplying them the tools so they will be able to continue or to maintain their ability to fight us back. Now, let's say hypothetically, theoretically, that we will be now in Russia and we will be Putin, okay? And they will be, I don't know, somebody else. Nobody will ask us, or nobody will demand from us to continue supplying aid or the ability to fight us back, while we know that it goes to the hands of Hamas. And this is the biggest problem, because we could do it faster, simpler, more efficient, saving more lives, soldiers that died and civilians, if we could just do whatever we thought that we could do. But we cannot. This is why we are facing an enemy with our hands tied behind in the reality of a catch, not 22, but a catch 44. Because the whole world is against us. So in this reality, when the whole world is against us and our hands are tied, what should we do? We just give up and say, okay, they kidnapped, they succeeded, let them die, and let's see what should we do in the future. I think that we should fix it and then be prepared for the challenges. And maybe this is the difference between the two approaches here. I believe that we need to fix it and then to be prepared. And again, I don't want to speak in the name of Gabi, but I believe that Gabi says there's nothing to fix. Let's say enough is enough and let's clean the area. But we cannot clean it. We cannot do whatever we want to do. This is our reality.
Thank you, Grisha. Well, to those who are watching, there are no right answers here, but we are very privileged to have two military experts who care deeply, who care about the fate of the hostages, but also about this long-term security of the state of Israel and the Jewish people. And we appreciate both of your perspectives and ongoing heroism and service to the state of Israel. So thank you for your time and look forward to another lively debate, hopefully with a less sensitive conversation. But our prayers and our thoughts are with the hostages first and foremost and all those who are affected by October 7th. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.